Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesday. We're getting started just a hair early today because we're just very excited. So I want to welcome all of those who are joining us for the first time and welcome back to everyone who has already attended a Wellbeing Wednesday. So if you don't already know, this is the monthly segment that shows childcare providers and caregivers like yourselves simple ways to support your own well-being, because in fact, taking care of ourselves is taking care of others. I'm your host, Susanna Creed with Be Well, Care Well, a program that's all about supporting the well-being of our childcare providers. So this month, I am very excited about our topic because oftentimes by October, parents, teachers, and the community at large have started to find their rhythm with the new school year. So things are starting to settle in, feeling a little more like, okay, I kind of know what this year might be shaping up like. It's not the very first week or first month. And so with that being said, this is also a really great time to take a look at how we can stay in rhythm throughout the school year and prevent some of the symptoms of that so famous buzzword now of burnout. So I'm very excited to welcome our guest today. This is licensed clinical social worker Megan Colclasure, who will share her insights about some boundary setting, value-based decision-making, and self-care during burnout. So when we have burnout, how can we support ourselves? And she has a lot of great information. I am super excited for our conversation. And as always, for those of you who are watching, if you have aha moments or questions or, stories that you want to share, please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll be checking those as we go throughout our conversation today. So Megan, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so glad to have you here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I appreciate my friend Katie for inviting me, and I think this is such a good topic. People in the health being perfect.
Thank you. And would you like me to pull up your wonderful presentation for us?
Yes, please.
All righty. And then you can just tell me when you want me to switch things and we'll go from there.
Okay. Yes. So, like Susanna was saying, I'm Megan Colclasure. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Right now, I'm working in private practice in Cabot. So I mainly work with adults and teens, but I've also worked with children. So kind of all ages of the lifespan. And you can go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this first slide here, I mainly just wanted to talk about what is burnout. Most of us may know what that is or have experienced it, but it is different than, typical exhaustion or typical compassion fatigue. So I really wanted to highlight what it was. It traditionally was for workplace exhaustion, but we're finding that we can experience burnout in all areas of our life. So I did highlight that on here. Burnout is the emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion brought on by repeated stress. And it can be experienced in different stages of life, even kids in school, parenting, friendship, caregiving. So I wanted to highlight how it could translate into different roles that we have.
Yeah, I think kind of since the pandemic, it highlighted the fact that it's not just our jobs that we can experience burnout in. It's also our personal lives, our relationships. And so I'm really glad that you kind of hit on that today.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to note with that was a lot of times how you know the difference, and this kind of leads us right into the signs, how you know the difference between exhaustion or burnout is when you do have time off, when you do have rest, you're not feeling refreshed. You're not feeling replenished. You tend to still feel the feelings, and that can be a sign of I'm experiencing burnout. So that leads us to the next slide. Just some different signs that you want to look for, whether this is personally or for a loved one, would be irritability, exhaustion, like I mentioned before, compassion fatigue. So kind of struggling to feel those normal feelings of empathy and sympathy, which sometimes is an integral part of our jobs and as parents and partners. So that is one key sign. And then it can even translate into physical symptoms. So I also noted the feelings of dissatisfaction or unfulfillment, because that really ties into the phenomenon of burnout as well.
Yeah. And again, I like how you touched on how you can tell the difference between you're just kind of feeling exhausted and tired versus burnout. And, I'm even thinking in my own life, and I'm like, ooh, there are times where even when I do get a break, I still don't feel refreshed, and like, what does that look like? And just even building awareness of when those times are, because sometimes, yeah, I take a couple of days off, or I take a day off, or, I just rest and kind of give myself permission to do nothing. And then I have energy back and I feel more rejuvenated. And then there's times where those things aren't that way. So just even building awareness is a really big tool to understand the differences. So I really like this slide personally. I'm getting a lot out of it.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad. And this is the next, and this is kind of getting into the core. What I'm going to talk about today is prevention. Or okay, we know what burnout is. We find ourselves burned out. What do we do? And this is going to be different based on who you are. The first thing that I put on here was know your limits. So another big buzzword right now is boundaries. And I use it so much in my practice that I've kind of gotten tired of the word. And so I've started to even, because language is everything sometimes, I've started to even use the word limits. And I find sometimes my clients do better with
I'm not sure why, but I can't hear you anymore.
responding to limits versus boundaries. What are my boundaries with my wrote to speak about today was our emails are on us at all. Okay, hold on. Can you good? Okay, so I'm not sure what cut out, but the last thing I said was going back to boundaries or an urgency culture where our phones, our emails, work sometimes is attached to us at all times. And it's very difficult for people to get a break or to, yeah, same. So to kind of have a line between work and home or work and rest. So the biggest thing I tell people is know your boundaries and limits. Work on setting those. Maybe start with your phone, social media, emails. And this is more as burnout pertaining to work. So this would be a little different depending on where you're experiencing it. But I think it could work with a variety of roles that you're experiencing it in.
So quick question on that.
Mm-hmm.
Say you have somebody who is like a director or a leader, and maybe, it's kind of like there's crisis after crisis after crisis, and there's just not enough help to go around. We hear that a lot of places are understaffed. and it's, you're in burnout, but it's
Mhm.
like there's really, like, you're constantly having to respond to things because there aren't enough people. What could somebody do in that sense to, how can they work in boundaries and limits in that particular kind of situation?
Great question. Now, is this also a situation where, like within a job like this, maybe you knew this was part of that job, like this crisis intervention, or you knew you would need to be on call in this way?
Let's say for this example, no. Let's say that,
Okay.
it was like, okay, this is just a short-term thing,
Mhm.
we're going to get more people, this, but it's turned into several weeks, several months, maybe even several years, where it's not meant to be a crisis thing. The infrastructure isn't meant for it to be a crisis, but there's
Mhm.
just not enough hands, and you have all these regulations and you have to keep up with it. What can somebody do in that sense? That's a tough
So
question.
at first, yeah, it is, but it's a great question because it's definitely real life. So I would first challenge that person to learn within themselves what are my needs right now? What are my needs? What are my personal limits and boundaries that I need? Because before you can reach out for help or talk to your leadership or your coworkers, you first need to know what you're asking for to begin with. And sometimes my clients often don't even know what they need before, they just know they need something different.
Mm-hmm.
So I would first, encourage you to do that. And then I would encourage you to talk to your leadership about, this is where I am at. I understand we all have regulations and crisis and needs, but this is what I'm experiencing. And I don't want this to affect my performance, what I can do long term, or affect the people I'm helping. Because a lot of times when you're in that position, you're not really helping as much as you could be because you're not okay yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it in turn, it kind of, can be a double-edged sword. So that is what I would encourage. I know not all, I've worked in jobs where leadership is very understanding and very mental health or wellness minded. And then I've worked in places that they're not. So I still think it's important to communicate and advocate for what you need, though, first.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next prevention I talk about is self-care. And this is another buzzword, like we like to say. What I wanted to note with self-care is I'm not talking about some of our basic needs, like that we, need regardless, like taking a shower, taking a bath. Yes, those things can be self care, but I am meaning more towards what does replenish you. Is that time away? Is that time with friends? Is that exercise? Is that doing a hobby? It's kind of based on your personality and what truly does replenish you. So, and we'll get to that to the next slide too. I did put some more examples of what those things could look like. Um, so, like I said, what gives you a good work-life balance? I know for a lot of people I work with who are more introverted, they feel really refreshed when they have time alone, when they have time away. And then I have people who, mountain climbing, swimming, hobbies, being with people, concerts, that's what replenishes them. And as long as that is somewhere in their work life balance or family life balance, they feel fulfilled.
Awesome.
Yes. And then, so this last one is very important as well. So this is the value alignment. So basic, value-based decision making. What I encourage people to do is find out what are your current values. And for a lot of people, we have a lot of the same values over our lifetime, core values. But as we grow, as we change, these shift. So allowing that shift while also taking notice of what are my priority values at this time. So one example I put was, let's say for partners who have young kids, they may value time now more than they value, let's say, a promotion or time with friends, whatever it may be. Then we have parents, let's say, that become empty nesters. Let's say their children are grown and move out, graduate. They may value travel or may value, saving for retirement. So time at work is more, priority at the time. This is really important. What are your values currently? And then how are you incorporating and living those out in your daily life? And you can move to the next slide, if you will, Susanna, please. I did attach some, under the value alignment, I attached a really good tool worksheet that I use a lot just to help identify what are those values and how can I implement them more. I also tell people, there's no right or wrong to what your values are currently. Sometimes I'll have my clients or just friends, people I work with, say, well, all of these are important to me. Like all 20 of these are important. And I understand that they very much are. So it's about prioritizing which ones currently are the most important to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So some ways that I feel you can, if you need help with these things, of course, therapy and counseling is something that I recommend really for anyone at any stage in life. You don't necessarily have to be struggling with something to go to counseling or therapy. It's very important just for prevention. So I did add one website on here, Psychology Today. This is a great resource to find therapists in your area. What I like about this resource is you can see pictures, you can see what different styles this therapist uses, what insurance they take. There's several factors on this website. I also, of course, have our website, Brain Hope Counseling. I am not currently taking any new. I am fully booked at the moment, but we have several therapists. We have 14 therapists that work in between Sherwood, Cabot, and Searcy. And we also offer telehealth options. So that is a direct resource that you could use. I put our office number on here, and then I also put our website, which you could also request information through that. That is just a great way to identify what your values are, what your stressors are, and then evaluate some of your own patterns within your life and relationships. Also, if that's not something that you're wanting to do at this time, it's also just important to seek support from, your coworkers, leadership, your partner, even if you have, spiritual advisors, pastors, anyone who is in a mentor type role or position can oftentimes really help with burnout, because a lot of times it's also, it also does have to do mentally, emotionally, and spiritually where you're at. That all ties into values and burnout. So the biggest thing here is seeking support.
Oh, is this the last slide?
This was the last slide.
Okay. I thought, oh no, my computer.
It went rather quickly, so no problem.
Oh no,
No
that's good.
problem.
That's good.
Now yeah.
I'm going to check the chat real quick. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information. It was, again, a lot of
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
useful terms. Yep, we have some comments about the urgency culture. Some people struggle with limits and boundaries. It's always go and give and all of these things. And actually, some people have said that they are boundary queens and limit queens, which is great. And would you be okay, Megan, if maybe we shared a link to this PowerPoint in the chat? Some people are asking for that. I don't know if this is a set slide that we are able to share or not. Sorry, say that one more time. I think it cut out. Oh no. Megan, can you hear me?
Are able to help.
Oh. I'm not sure if this will work for those of you who are on there for your comments. Not sure. In the meantime, because of all of the fun storms, if anybody's experiencing those, I know that Megan and I have been experiencing that this morning. Oh, can you hear me again, Megan? Okay. Are you okay if I make a copy of that slideshow and share that in the chat? Would that be okay? Okay. I'm going to.
Yes.
Perfect. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions for Megan about burnout or any of the things that we discussed today, if y'all can put those in the chat. And now I'm trying to share this presentation. I think this new link that I put in there will be a little bit better because it's a share only option, or view only option. So any other questions in the chat that we have from people? And in the meantime, Megan, I might want to go back to that conversation that we were having, the scenario about, if you're feeling like you have burnout, but your work is kind of in a crisis that's ended up being not just an acute crisis, but now it's just kind of how it is. Say, for instance, because not all of us feel comfortable going to our leadership. And sometimes there might not, like we might be it. There might not be any other leadership to go to. In that scenario, how could we go about setting our limits and helping ourselves with this burnout if either we don't feel comfortable going to the leadership about it, or if we are the leadership and there's no one above us? What thoughts do you have on that?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is if you feel comfortable and you are leadership, I would say you need to start areas of your life then that you feel comfortable. That might be everyone wants to hear, but sometimes with my clients, when we're at a place we can't attack the problem head on. We can't develop down in our stress level. Maybe there are areas in life also our need limits in. Start there. Start there to gain traction, to gain momentum, and learning how to set them. Learning how to get confident, say no, or having limits. Also, just to relieve some stress, I would still encourage you to find out, okay, what can I handle in this situation? What can I do differently in this situation that could be helpful? So that's where I would start. I know if this was like getting deeper on, where more, but just for the scenario you're giving me, that was the thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. It's a hard situation, but those are some really good ideas as well. We do have another question. So someone, and this is a really good point, someone shared that they have a hard time of trying to not spend so much time on problems because they feel like they're dwelling on the negative, which makes it worse. But it is important to not have pent up frustration as well. So finding a balance between that validation of, hey, this is hard, and also making sure that we don't stay stuck there, that we move to the positive and the solutions without that toxic positivity, right? Those are two ends of the seesaw. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm.
How to find that balance?
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Because that is the idea of having all times we do experience the same, and a lot of times our ones still negative or positive, black or white. It's really not life. We have both in time. So absolutely important to express those emotions, validated. I think we'll notice that it no longer feels to bend or restrictions. That's a sign that maybe you're well. So it's knowing yourself too on, okay, is this helping you right now? I'm feeling really feeling change, and I'm feeling some relief. And if not, that's just kind of time for me to kind of do better my space.
Yeah, those are some also really great options as well. So I can't believe the time always goes so fast. So we are probably going to move to close our Facebook Live today. But thank you again, Megan, so much for joining us and sharing the presentation and allowing us to share that as well. If you're just joining us or if you want to access that, the view only version of that PowerPoint, which has the link, should be in the chat. And then if you watch this video or share this video on YouTube later, I will include that link as well in the description box. So if you don't already, please make sure to follow Curricula Concepts on Facebook and Instagram and on our YouTube channel, because then you won't miss any Wellbeing Wednesdays that we have in the future. We do this the first Wednesday of every month at 12:30 Central Standard Time, and we do a different topic of wellness with a wonderful speaker like Megan that we had today. So please feel free to join us again for next month. And if you liked today's show, please feel free to share it with your friends, family, coworkers, send a carrier pigeon, whatever calls to your soul and fills your heart. And if you are a child care provider and would like more information about enrolling in Be Well, Care Well, information about that should be in the chat box as well in the comments. So this has been another Wellbeing Wednesday. I'm your host, Susanna Creed, and I'm wishing you all well. Bye, everyone.